German research vessel Meteor on its way to the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. 5 weeks, 50 people, and 5,000 meters of barely explored deep sea. Torben Riehl hopes to discover new species and habitats. It's his first expedition as chief scientist, which means responsibility for the entire operation.
It's just full of water instead of sediment. So that's now cost us around 12 hours. A lot of the team are exhausted from all the waiting and processing samples and deploying equipment. So we need a plan B.
It's a mission that will push the team to its limits.
That's our gear.
Torben Riehl is a marine biologist. Several weeks before their departure, the research team prepares 9 tons of equipment for shipment to the Canary Islands. The expedition will then take them across the Atlantic to Fortaleza in Brazil.
No breaks, no shore leave. We'll be in the middle of the ocean, seeing very few other ships. Nowhere near any shipping routes. It's special. Being chief scientist on a research expedition for the first time is really exciting. I'll be coordinating 28 scientists on board. So it's a huge responsibility, but also a huge honor. Working closely with the skipper and the ship's crew, my job is to put my theoretical research plan into practice.
Daddy, ice cream.
Das ist in der Tat das erste Mal.
It's actually my first time at sea since becoming a father.
Zur See fahre.
He's only just turned 2, so 6 weeks will feel like forever, and we're a bit worried about him. Well, not forgetting about his dad, but perhaps becoming afraid of him never coming back home. What's that?
Ship.
And what's its name? Meteor.
40 days.
A lot of days, huh? And you can put a sticker on every day until I'm back. Getting a bit nervous and excited.
Aufregend, ja.
I'm looking forward to going up the gangway. Always a cool feeling.
That's when you realize it's really happening.
And we can go up and down the gangway 3 times because we have so much luggage.
So where is it?
Our home for the next 6 weeks. Yellow deck.
I'm bunking with Mandy. This one's ours.
Great.
Mind taking the top bunk?
Fine.
Oh, perfect.
You've been on this one before?
No, this is my first time on any ship.
Great.
You too?
Yes.
Really? Thanks.
Most people wished us luck rather than fun. The Atlantic, big waves, good luck.
While most members of the team are sharing a cabin with someone else, Torben has one to himself.
My predecessor didn't leave beer. My first time in the chief scientist's cabin. It's massive compared to the others. I'm starting to get what it means to be chief scientist.
The first officer gives the command.
Let go forward spring.
Time to cast off. Meteor sets sail, with a journey of almost 5,000 kilometers ahead of the crew and research team, and no land in sight for several weeks.
Morning!
While Torben and his team set up the labs, the ship heads out to the open ocean. Its first destination is 4 days away.
I love being on the ship and looking out at the sea. I still can't sleep properly because it takes a few days to get used to the constant rocking, but I've really missed it. It's been a few years since I was last at sea.
He's not the only scientist who needs time to adjust to the ship's movement, but for experienced sailors like the captain, this is nothing.
One time, we were sailing from Catania to Las Palmas when this monster wave swept over the entire ship from the front. Then it came back from behind and crushed 2 containers by the stern. It was pretty wild. Although I wasn't scared because these ships can take a lot. If it's properly stable, the ship will always right itself.
After 4 days at sea, the Meteor is now in the middle of the Atlantic. The researchers on board want to see what kinds of creatures live down below on the seabed. The first step is to hoist a 600-kilo sample collection sled overboard. No mean feat in these choppy seas. The Meteor will then drag the sled across the seabed, with nets collecting the organisms thrown up by the apparatus. If there's anything blocking the sled, the team will only be able to tell by monitoring the towing tension. If the sled were to get stuck, the tension would continue to increase until the cable breaks.
It's bumpier than usual. So now we're free again. It was pushing something ahead of it.
It was really sudden.
Borderline.
It was 80.
The captain has to be on guard in such cases, ready to stop the ship immediately.
The sled is now off the bottom and the danger's over.
Bringing the sled back on deck takes several hours.
It's holding it tight on the wire. We'll turn it and put it over there. Last time it looked a bit dangerous.
The deck crew help the scientists retrieve the sample collector.
It'll be fine. Now try over here. Here. Hold on tight. And down. Station complete.
The submersion was a success. Temperatures at the bottom of the sea here are just 2 to 4 degrees Celsius. To analyze the tiny animal's DNA on land later, the scientists have to keep the samples chilled. Lab assistant Nicole Gatzemeyer combs through the sediment for signs of life.
A worm? And a shrimp? No, a mysid.
Here in the cold room at around 4 degrees Celsius, Nicole spends hours photographing their finds and is rewarded with glimpses into another world.
The textbooks say the deep sea is monotonous and homogeneous, but each sample might contain dozens or even hundreds of species. So how can this habitat be so boring, but at the same time be home to so many species?
A question that Torben wants to get to the bottom of using a deep-sea camera. It's a part of the seabed that nobody has ever seen before.
Suspense.
The winch operator carefully lowers the camera down to the dark depths, 5 kilometers below sea level. It takes an hour and a half to reach the bottom.
Bridge to lab.
Seabed visible.
The Meteor is now dragging the camera slowly across the seabed. The live footage from the bottom of the ocean shows a seemingly monotonous surface covered in sediment. But actually featuring a myriad of animal life.
Oh, sea urchin. Oh!
No
Nein,
way.
das ist das.
What's that?
Das sind Steine, Nico.
Rocks. Those are rocks, man.
Crust.
Kruste. Ist das
Is it
Mangan?
manganese?
It's definitely angular and hard.
Why do we find this great biodiversity when the habitat seems so monotonous? Turns out the habitat isn't as monotonous as we thought.
Der Lebensraum ist gar nicht so eintönig, wie es bisher gedacht war. Wir müssen uns das so vorstellen.
So we have flat sediment and suddenly a rock sticking out. The ocean currents generate turbulence that stirs up the sediment. Strong currents create coarse sediment, and weak ones fine sediment. And that leads to specific adaptations, and to an important new approach to understanding deep-sea diversity.
I'm Thomas Kuntz, the ship's doctor. I treat minor medical issues that everyone gets, like seasickness, colds, nausea. It's a pretty big range of things. So get well soon and see you tomorrow.
And then,
The doctor's on his way.
with no emergency services to call out at sea, the crew has to be trained to fight fires. Every room has ventilation ducts, which could allow smoke to spread throughout the ship. In the case of life-threatening injuries, the captain would immediately head to the nearest port, which out here is 4 days away.
Drill complete. Thanks, everyone.
Turn the oxygen up to full and hold it to the face.
Emergency drills are held weekly as the ship is way out of range for a helicopter.
The only option that's been used before is to send out a medical SOS. So if there are warships nearby, they can move into position and enable a helicopter to refuel. It's happened before, with various countries working together, including Russia and the US. It shows the world can work together if it wants to. I'd wanted to become a nautical officer, but after an accident at school, I had to wear glasses, which ruled me out. You had to be in perfect health, which I wasn't. Then I studied medicine and heard that they did now accept doctors with glasses, which allowed me to fulfill my dream. I sold my practice and now want to dedicate myself to this job through to retirement.
It's the team's second week at sea, and Torben has to plan the next technical deployment. Everyone else finally gets a break, and some time for an old tradition aboard research ships. The cups they're illustrating will be sent down together with the next sled. 5 kilometers below sea level, the pressure is so immense that it shrinks the cups to a fifth of their original size. A nice souvenir. Mandy Zieger-Hofmann is a geologist. With her colleague Andreas Gärtner, she's studying dust from the Sahara Desert, which is blown by the wind all across the Atlantic. The minerals in the dust act as a natural fertilizer and might influence deep-sea biodiversity.
We suspect that the deep sea isn't directly fertilized by the Saharan dust, but the near-surface marine ecosystem is. And the more productive that is, the more of it sinks to the bottom. So it's indirect fertilization, we think.
So stellen wir uns das jetzt vor.
Going up.
Deep sea research above the water. To examine the dust more closely, the two geologists climb up the mast once a day to attach adhesive traps. The ship's highest point also sways the most.
Dust is now moving at heights above the mast's 38.5 meters, so we've been looking at ways of getting higher.
The team on board also includes a meteorologist. Once a day, he releases a helium balloon with a probe to collect weather data.
They wouldn't normally come back, so the idea was to send up a balloon on a line and then retrieve it.
We're not moving, which is good. The wind's steady, so let's give it a try.
The improvised idea is put to the test. Before the balloon is launched with a thin line attached, the geologists coat it with an adhesive that can be chemically removed back on land.
Super, danke euch.
Kids' experiments.
An hour later, the balloon's line has torn.
So the meteorologist said he would donate one more balloon.
The balloons are limited. Normally, only one is supposed to go up each day for the weather report. But their ingenuity is proving contagious. This time, they're using a stronger fishing line provided by the sailors.
Damn.
Where was that? Up by the lamp.
And I was worried about the ladder.
One last try.
One more.
Fishing with a big balloon to see how the deep sea gets its fertilizer. Can that really work?
The first results showed we reached a peak height of 200 meters.
Amazing. Such a great feeling.
Now the fishing line just needs to hold.
We decided over dinner that afterwards we'd go and bring the balloon in, but it started raining.
And if that rain washes away the dust, their efforts will have been in vain.
Come on, Andy.
My first time fishing, and it was a tough one. Helium balloons want to fly away.
He eventually reels in his catch. And after a preliminary inspection, it's time to dry off.
There really were dust particles still on it. It worked. On the third attempt.
Another part of the team's quest to study biodiversity involves extracting a sample of the soft seabed. Unfortunately, the box core is empty for the 5th time running. Embarking on another attempt means Torben has to update the operations schedule.
It's a challenge for me too as chief scientist. You have to ensure that the frustration doesn't cause people to lose heart, and instead muster the energy at maybe 3 a.m. to get the equipment back in the water, and wait 3.5 hours for it to surface. Not easy.
With time and money of the essence, work continues day and night.
6 of 7 failed. Damn. It's just full of water instead of sediment. So that's now cost us around 12 hours. A lot of the team are exhausted from all the waiting and processing samples and deploying equipment. So we need a plan B. Moving the beam this way so the cable runs along the hull will cut down the side load.
The box core did open at least, but no one can really say what went wrong down below. The device probably got tangled up in its own cable and blocked the scoop.
Yeah, so I really want the entire box core team to take a rest. Tomorrow we need to be concentrated, so, it needs to work.
The mood has been just fantastic so far, but it's changed a bit since yesterday with some people. The irregular sleep patterns and night shifts are taking their toll. So that's a constant worry for me. How do I keep the team motivated? It's a challenge that's giving me sleepless nights at the moment.
Keeping the Meteor running far out at sea is a team of technicians working in shifts around the clock. Chief Engineer Volker Hartig joined the crew 25 years ago. He coordinates the various tasks that need doing in the engine room.
It might be plugging a hole in a water pipe or sealing a leaky fuel line. Unexpected things are always popping up that break up the daily routine, I guess you'd say.
Den Alltag auflockern, sage ich mal.
No other ship will ever mean as much to me as the Meteor. These 25 years have been really special.
Ist was Besonderes.
We usually work 3 months at sea, followed by 2 or 3 months off. So family life takes a back seat. You tend to miss the little things that are big milestones for the kids, like coming-of-age ceremonies. And you can forget about birthdays. Your family just has to do without you. It's tougher for them than for me.
Die Familie mehr klarkommen muss als ich, sage ich mal.
Tonight sees another attempt to gather seabed samples. Technician Marco Brun has been monitoring the box core's downward progress since 3 a.m.
Annie, Franzi, we're 1,000 meters off the bottom. Morning. I've made coffee. See you in a bit.
A critical moment as the sample collector reaches its destination.
The device is now on the seabed. We'll wait a bit, but not too long, or the cable might get wrapped around the corer.
Give the command to pull up too early, and the box will remain empty. But waiting too long and unraveling too much cable means a bigger risk of the device becoming entangled.
Heave at 04. Empty here, a bit more when it's full. Here we go. Exactly.
The collector takes an hour and a half to return to the surface. From outside, the box does look promising.
Nice. Still not too much sediment.
This time it worked. Once the seawater has been delicately siphoned off, the researchers can collect the tiny deep-sea organisms.
Guys, finally done!
The teams have really grown together. I'd love to be there, but as chief scientist, you're stuck alone in your little cabin and go down to see what's happening and then make your decisions. Then you return to your cabin and update the schedule and write your next report.
At sunrise, the scientists examine the layers of the seabed. Maya LaGrange Rao, a postdoctoral associate at Yale University in the U.S., has come up with an idea. borrowing the doctor's X-ray machine to analyze the samples.
Okay, lower leg.
And action.
Once I've X-rayed these sediment samples, I send the images straight to Yale. Pretty amazing.
Sea animals that live on and in the seafloor that burrow into the seafloor for protection or for feeding, which is nice because it allows for an internal view of the cores.
It's the final research day.
First thing I'll do is hug my little Janis, but I'm a bit afraid he'll run away.
That he won't recognize you?
No, he will. But sometimes when I've been away and come back, he won't look at me and just wants his mom to hold him. But hopefully, that'll just be briefly.
Torben's team will bring a container full of samples back to Germany.
Despite the difficulties, we got all the data and samples we needed. And now the real work begins.
An estimated 90% of all deep-sea species are still unknown. But before humans get the chance to discover them, many will already be extinct. This unique habitat is under threat from climate change, overfishing, fossil fuel drilling, and pollution, meaning that Torben's mission is far from over. Finally, land ahoy as the skyline of Fortaleza, Brazil appears on the horizon. The Meteor has reached the other side of the Atlantic Ocean. A local harbor pilot arrives and boards the ship.
For information, we have fixed propeller, backer rudder, bow thruster is good working, and if you go astern, bow go to starboard.
The visitor helps the captain into the harbor as the helmsman carries out the commands.
Easy to 180.
The ship finally docks again. Time to say goodbye.
Take care. Thank you. It was great.
The ship's crew stays on board for the next expedition while the researchers fly home. After 5 weeks at sea, exploring the mysteries of deep sea life, Torben is reunited with his family.
Papa!